All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the second live stream from the Grouper Moon Project 2023. My name's Todd. I'm a volunteer educator with the Reef Environmental Education Foundation. And I'm here with the Grouper Moon Project, which is a collaboration between the Cayman Islands Department of the Environment and Reef. And we've been out here for several days already, diving on the aggregation, counting the fish, taking lots of video, collecting tons of data. And yeah, the conditions for the first few days have been wonderful. Like the water was just flat like glass, no current at all. This morning, however, it seems that things have changed and the winds have kicked up a little bit. But we're still out there 3 times a day, out there diving first thing in the morning, then again at noon, and then again in the evening. And usually, so we just had our full moon, which was Sunday. And the full moon is the big indicator for when the fish are going to arrive and start to spawn. Usually it takes between 3 and 5 days after the full moon for the fish to spawn. But we got a surprise last night. And on basically the second night after the full moon, or really just one night after the full moon, they started to spawn. So, which is incredibly exciting and surprising. So towards the end of this live stream today, we're going to share some of the video that we took last night of the spawning. So be sure to stick around. And if you can't stay for the whole live stream, don't worry, because we're going to have, this is recorded. It'll be on the Reef YouTube page. You can go on there and watch it anytime that you want. And also a reminder that we're going to be on again tomorrow, same time, 11 o'clock, and that will be our underwater live stream where we'll take you on a dive on Bloody Bay Wall, which is a famous dive site here on Little Cayman. So as we did yesterday, I'm going to introduce you all to some of the really wonderful, and actually before I introduce everyone, I'm going to pull some of these classrooms on screen so we can see you all. Hello. It's so awesome to see you all here. Thank you for joining us. And I want to thank all of your teachers for going the extra mile and bringing you all here. Teachers have a huge job, and doing extra, like showing up for this live stream, takes a lot of effort. So I appreciate all of you for making the effort to be here with us today. So I'm gonna introduce a few of the staff members on the DOE. As we go, if you have a question that you're dying to ask, you can let your teacher know, and they can type it into the chat. Or I'll be asking if there are questions kind of periodically throughout the live stream. And if you've got a question, raise your hand and you can come up and ask your question. If you're too embarrassed to ask, you can just have your teacher ask for you. But thanks you all so much for being here. All right, so I'm going to introduce you guys to, we've got a lineup today. So first I'm going to introduce you to Jonathan Rivers. Jonathan, will you come on up? Okay, and I'm going to have a seat right there next to me. All right.
Morning, guys.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Excellent. So can you introduce yourself and just say what is your technical job on the Grouper Moon Project this year?
Okay. My name is Jonathan Rivers. One of the captains and support crew and divers for this project. It's my first time doing it, so I'm pretty excited to be here, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to see a lot of different things and something I've never seen before.
And so what are you doing on the project? Like, you're here with DOE, are you diving? Yeah,
I'm here with DOE, I'm diving. I'm mainly diving and support staff, and we've been doing, a few different things.
Like what?
The stereo video, the fish face identification. That's 2 of the things I've done so far.
So the stereo video, we talked a little bit about that yesterday, but it's 2 cameras at the end of
it. Yeah, there's 2 cameras on the end of a bar in the middle, and they're slightly counted inwards. And you just, you don't want to get too close to the fish, but you kind of get optimal distance from the fish. And what that does is gives you an idea how big the fish is.
Oh, so that's for size.
Yeah, that's for size.
The stereo videos for size. And then the fish faces is with actual GoPros, right? And you're going around, and I kind of described it yesterday as you guys were creating a fish Facebook.
Yeah, pretty much.
Where you're collecting all of the faces of the different grouper. Now, why is that helpful for us to have their faces?
Well, that's cool because if you get that, what you can do is in the future, if that same fish is spotted, they'll be able to tell, okay, this fish was spotted on, 5th of February or 6th of February, 2023. And that's pretty cool because then if that fish has been continuing to come back to that same location this morning. And this is all stuff I'm learning during this, so I hope I'm saying this right. But
you're saying it perfect.
Yeah, that's I guess it would help to make sure that population is staying stable and healthy.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of creates like a roster. These are all this is our school, right?
Yeah,
and we can check them off each year, and then we can see the new ones come. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Each year I guess you're gonna have new, younger fish coming into the group. So you get those guys into the database as well, and you also can go back and see the older guys that have been there the whole time. And I guess they're teaching the new ones the way.
That's awesome.
Yes, that's cool.
Well, I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about your story. Where did you grow up, and kind of what were the steps that you took to being here with the DOE on the project?
Well, I grew up in West Bay on Grand Cayman.
Where did you go to school?
John A. Cumber. So,
we have some teachers from John A. Cumber here today. Awesome.
Well, maybe I know some of those guys.
Okay.
I came up in West Bay.
Were you diving and snorkeling a lot as a kid?
Yeah, I spent most of my life's probably been on the water. My family has always had, been fishing and stuff. Yeah. And I got certified. When I got certified, it was 12. So I got certified right away. I was at the dive shop on my birthday going, hey, can I get certified, guys?
That's awesome.
I did that actually through the Boy Scouts who came on. So I did that, there, and I worked in tourism for a long time. I've been, with dive boats and diving. And then I got in with the DOE, and I've always been interested in the environment. Mm-hmm. So when I got the opportunity to work with DOE, I was like, yeah, I'll take that. And I've been with these guys for the last 2 years, and it's been wonderful.
And what some of the things that you've done? You weren't necessarily doing all research. You were doing other, were you captaining?
Yeah. I mostly do the captaining. So I've been around to the different islands there, and taking these guys on different projects. I've worked on a few different projects for the
So what are some of the what's fun about being a captain?
I get to be on the water all the time. It's my office, other people are sitting at a desk at their office. I'm on the water.
Yeah, you're not at a desk at all.
No, I'm out on the water. That's my office. I've got a beautiful 360-degree view, and you can't beat that.
So have you been out diving on the aggregation so far?
Yeah, I've done a few dives here, 2 different locations here to see the aggregation, and there's been so many groupers. It's been great to see. I know over the years the population has declined a bit, and now it seems that they're coming back. So for me, it was an amazing opportunity to get to see it, and so I'm hoping we get to see this for many more years to come, because I love the kids for the future to be able to see this as well.
Absolutely, that's why we're doing it for you guys, right? So that we have this into the future.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having
Jonathan.
me. It's great to be on this project, and it's great to meet you.
It's good to meet
you guys. You can, one of these days you might be out here diving with these guys, so you can be explaining what's going on.
Absolutely.
Right, have a good one.
All right, have a seat. Let's have Paul come on over. Hi, Paul.
Good morning, Todd. Todd. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. How you doing?
This is Paul. Can you just introduce yourself and what your role is on the Grouper Moon project?
Well, my name is Paul Chin. I'm one of the more senior officers from the Department of Environment. Been with the department for about 13 years. I've been on the Grouper Moon project for well over a decade now. And
really? How long actually have you been on this project?
For the 13 years that I've been employed with DOE, I think I've been on the project about 12 years out of that 13 years.
Someone was saying that maybe you've done the most dives on DOE here.
It's quite possible. It's quite
Interesting.
possible. It's quite possible.
Interesting.
After doing 3 dives a day, every Grouper Moon, it tends to mount up. Your numbers tend to get really tall.
Yeah.
So I may know some of the people on the chat here. I had a son who went through the John A. Cumber system, so I may know some of the teachers on there, some of the students on there.
Shout out John A. Cumber.
How you doing, guys? I went through the system in Grand Cayman.
So you grew up in Grand Cayman. You went to John A. Cumber.
I didn't go to John A. Cumber.
You didn't.
My son went to John A.
Oh,
Cumber.
your son. Got it.
But I did grow up, and I went through the system. I went to Georgetown Primary, then I went to Red Bay Primary, and then I went to George Hicks and John Gray, which is now the two high schools are now merged into one, which is now just John Gray.
Right.
And then after that, I took my tertiary education over to Hong Kong. I was in Hong Kong.
You went to Hong Kong?
I was in Hong Kong.
What
yes.
were you studying there?
Well, I went there to do my international baccalaureate, and actually that's where I found my calling. I was doing some volunteer research for the WWF, the World Wildlife Federation.
Really?
And I was collecting data one day. I was actually studying to try to be a mechanical engineer. And while collecting data one day, I came along a seahorse, and the seahorse happened to be pregnant. And after going home and doing a bit of research, realizing that
how did you know it was pregnant? You could tell.
You could tell it was definitely quite large.
Okay.
Quite large torso. And then after going home and doing some research and realizing that it's the males that carry the babies of the seahorse, that actually absolutely mesmerized me. And then I fell in love with the ocean. Even though I grew up with the ocean, you grew up in that kind of environment. Sometimes you take the ocean for granted and you don't realize what you have until it's not there anymore.
Right.
So after realizing that was my calling, I've been doing it ever since. Luckily for me, after graduating from University of Essex in England.
Okay, so you went to Hong Kong.
Yes, and then I went to the UK for 5 years. Where I did
so that was kind of after you decided this was going to be your area of research.
Yes, exactly. So then I started applying to universities that specialize in marine biology. I ended up at the University of Essex in England, where I did my bachelor's and my master's. And after that, I came home, and luckily for me, 6 months into applying for jobs, I landed a job at the DOE. Prior to that, I was doing volunteer work for them.
So you started as a volunteer?
Yeah, I started as an intern and during my summers, helping out where I could, helping on some of the projects there, like the turtle nesting project that happens from the beginning of April all the way down till sometimes in November.
And that's where you go around and actually check on the nest.
Check on the nest, and then we help the babies come out. And we've had a record number of babies being released over the last few years, somewhere in the vicinity of 50,000 babies in a season. And I went from being an apprentice in that project to now spearheading that project.
Wow.
So I'm actually in charge of that project. So and now I'm also a big part of this project as well. So after being there for 13 years, you end up in all these different various projects, and you help out wherever you can. And for me, this job is extremely rewarding because you get to see all the results and all the benefits of your work come to pass, and you see all the numbers increasing, the number of fishing.
Well, and you've really seen that,
yes,
the dramatic increase, because you've been here from the beginning, and seen every year.
Yes,
it's quite amazing.
And you know what? You'd think after doing it for over a decade, you get tired of seeing the same thing over and over. It never gets boring.
No.
And especially when you see the numbers go from just a mere couple thousand to well over, into the 5 figures, it's absolutely mesmerizing just to see and to know that you're part of something that's making a huge difference in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we were yesterday, Dr. McCoy was on here with us, and he had shared some stereo footage from the Brack. Mm-hmm. And we saw quite a few fish on the Brack as well.
Right. We thought that our actual population was almost down to nothing. It was last year that we actually went and did a scout dive, and we managed to come across about 2,500 fish. And that's when we knew that our population was actually was recovering. We found them on the eastern end of the Brack, and now we're gonna try to incorporate the Brack every year now as well as part of the project. And actually, it's so funny that over the 10 years, we've also seen shifts in patterns that we thought was a pattern for the aggregate have now shifting, as you mentioned earlier. It went from spawning 3 days after the full moon to just 1 day.
Yeah.
And we think that that's based on the population density just increasing.
So maybe an indication of the health of the...
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. So, so what we know of the Nassau grouper could just be based on evolutionary processes and just survival processes. So now as the population starts to regroup and get larger, we're now seeing what we know of the Nassau grouper population change a little bit.
Right.
So we're hoping that we're going to continue and just see where it goes from here, and just continue to gather data, and hopefully we'll have the answers that we've been looking for all this time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just amazing to see this wonderful group of people come together every year, and to see more and more the community, the Cayman communities
Right.
become part of this and,
Right.
and to take ownership of the Grouper Moon project.
Yes. And actually, you know what? You when you come here for every year, it's not always the same group of people, and then you manage to forge friendships that last a lifetime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've met you for a few years now, and there's a few people. Jonathan is new to the project. You know, we got a few more other people from the reef who come down here. Students they're doing their masters and their PhD, and you manage to forge these friendships, and they last a lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, you can't ask for anything better.
No. Oh, that's an inspiring story. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
very much,
Paul.
guys.
Awesome. Why don't you go have a seat, and I'm going to introduce you guys to one more person. Cody, come on up. Hi. Have a seat there. Cody, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
All right. How are you, Todd?
I'm hanging in there. I've known you for a while. You've been on this project quite a while.
Yeah.
Can you tell everyone who you are and what your role is with the DOE?
All right. Yeah. My name is Cody Panton. I'm a research officer with the Department of Environment. I've been there 7 years now, officially.
What does it mean, research officer? Like, what does that job entail? Kids, you know what that's like. Oh, I have to quickly do a shout out because I see Spot Bay just showed up today. Spot Bay, hello, welcome. I'm going to pull you guys onto the screen so we can see everyone that's here today. I'm so excited that you guys are here and that your teacher's feeling better and that y'all are here with us today. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so what is it that you do on the Grouper Moon project?
Basically,
Everything.
a little bit of everything.
Really? So
the fish face stuff, the stereo video, sometimes driving boats as well.
really? So
Yeah.
you're also a captain.
Yeah.
Nice. Sort of captain.
Yeah.
You can drive the boat.
I can drive a boat. Yeah. not the big boat, one of the smaller boats.
And Spot Bay, we were just talking a moment ago about how a group of DOE and reef researchers went out to the BRAC 2 days in a row and saw quite a few fish. Were you out on that?
I was on the BRAC trips. Yes.
Tell us about that. What was that like? Was that expected? Was that surprising?
Well, compared to, as Paul said earlier, found around 2,500 fish last year, and it was about the same number I saw this time.
And
But
before you guys had gone last year, you thought it was almost the population had been pretty much decimated, that there was maybe only a couple hundred.
yeah, previous years we've gone out there and only found several hundred fish.
Well, okay, so I have a question. This came up yesterday, and I couldn't answer it because there wasn't everyone here to answer this question for me. But do you think that the increase in population on the BRAC is due to the protections that have been placed on the grouper?
Yeah, I would think so.
And because some of the kids asked yesterday, well, what happens if you catch a grouper? Or and I was like, well, there's times of the year when you can and you can't, and then there's rules when you can about how big they are. Can you tell us how that works? When is the no catch season?
The no catch season, I believe, is from December through March.
March. Okay. And that's to protect them.
That's basically covered during the spawning season.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then
there's also the spawning aggregation sites that you're not allowed to fish there, so you can't even accidentally catch a grouper.
Okay.
If you're because you shouldn't be fishing at the spawning sites anyway.
So the spawning site is protected year round. You're not supposed to fish there, or is it just during the aggregation season?
Sorry.
Just during
Just during spawning season. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Now, so when it's not spawning season and someone goes out and catches a grouper, are there catch size limits? How big does it need to be? 16 to 24 inches. And I imagine that's because by that time they've been old enough to have reproduced already, spawn.
Right.
Is that the idea?
That's the idea. Yeah. So you catch them once they've already had the chance to spawn. And yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being here, Cody. You guys, give Cody a big hand. Give him a wave. Thank you for being here. You can go have a seat.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I see that there was a couple of questions from Cayman International School that I want to address first before we bring on our next scientist, and then we share some amazing video that we took last night of the spawning. So Cayman International School asked, how many fish are at the spag? And actually, I'm going to change things around a little bit, and I have a professional here on the reef team who has talked or has done quite a bit around counting the fish and estimating exactly how many fish there are. And how do we estimate how many fish there are? I mean, have you seen thousands of fish? This must be really hard. So Lynn, hi.
Hello.
Everyone, this is Lynn. Say hi to Lynn. Can you tell us who you are and what you do on this project?
So my name's Lynn Waterhouse, and I'm one of the volunteers on this project. And I started in 2013 as one of the graduate students coming here.
10 years.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're not a graduate student anymore?
Nope, I'm done. I finished my PhD, and now I'm a professor at University of Minnesota.
Okay. Now, when I go out, and you guys have seen the videos of the spawning aggregation, right? And you would imagine that trying to count those fish, they all look the same, even though we know that they all have really unique facial patterns. They all look the same. And so how do you actually count them and figure out how many there are? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've learned that divers, they're good at counting things, but when you get over 1,000 things, it's really hard to do. You're focusing on so many things underwater, so we can't get really accurate numbers. So what we actually do is we do a tagging study.
Okay.
So this involves a little math. So first of all, I love math. Can people raise their hands if they like math too?
Do we have any math? Yes. Okay, right there. Awesome. Although I saw a lot of hands stay down. That's okay. Over there we go. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
so I love math. So this is where we use some math in here. And so we actually put out these tags on the fish. So it's a little colorful plastic tag, kind of like giving them an earring, a little decoration.
Right.
And so you can see this underwater. We don't know how many we put out. And then on subsequent dives, we count 50 fish. How many tags do we see in the fish?
Wait, no, you do know how many you put out, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We know exactly how many we put out.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I was just clarifying.
And then we do tag counts for 50 fish. How many tags do we see? And then we can use the proportions to figure out how many total fish there are out there.
So let's say you put out 100 tags, and then you go out and do you count just as many as you can see, or is there a structure, framework that you're using for how?
There is.
How do you do that?
So we count for 50 fish.
Okay, so every time you look, you're counting 50.
Yes.
And then of those 50, you're figuring out how many have tags.
Yes.
And then you're using that to create an estimate of the total number of fish.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So if you counted 50 fish, you saw 5 tags, you knew you put out 100, then you'd know that there's roughly 10,000 fish out there.
Right? Isn't that amazing?
So it's equal proportion. So we do a little bit of math on the back end. So I do a combination of, normally I'd be in the field a little bit, and then I get to go do a lot of math and computer work, which is really exciting because we figure out how many are out there.
Now, I also know that there's an algorithm. You guys know about algorithms that helps crunch the numbers. Can you tell us a little bit about what is an algorithm and how does that help us estimate the number of fish?
Yeah, so we're talking about counting 50 fish, but we don't just go do that once. We actually have divers out there this morning. There were 6 divers, and they were counting 50 fish again and again and again. So we get a lot of replicates.
Okay.
So we're doing this, and then we're looking at, on average.
So that's your data. You're collecting as much data, like a massive amount of data, right?
Hundreds of counts of 50.
Okay.
So people are going to be busy doing this over the next couple of days.
Right.
And then we use a computer program that analyzes it. And we also actually include a part of the algorithm that says, well, for example, Steve and Paul, they've been doing this for a long time. So they might be really good at counting. And then somebody who's brand new to the project, the first time they're out there, they might accidentally be a little bit more drawn to the tags, or they might have a little different perception. Also, people have different visions. I'm nearsighted, so I actually have a hard time seeing far away.
Okay.
So I might be a little bit worse at seeing tags than some people.
Sure.
And so we modified the algorithm, this is part of my PhD work, to say that different people are actually seeing slightly different proportions of tags, and it takes that into account.
So it takes into account like the experience of the person that's actually doing the counting.
Yep, the fact that we're all different.
Wow. And so at the end of last year, you took all the 50 counts, all that data, you put it into the computer, you crunched, the computer crunch, and how many did we think? What was the estimate last year?
So last year, the best estimate was 8,000 fish here on Little.
Wow. And if you guys have watched the documentaries that we've shared, you'll know that when we started, we believe there was maybe 1,500 fish on the aggregation. So that's a huge increase. Although that's taken a lot of time, and that's something that a lot of people ask about. Why is it that it's taken over 10 years for us to actually see that huge increase? And is that more to do with the NASA's long life, or why do you think it's taken so long for us to see that?
So two things. It has a little bit to do with the NASA's long life. So it takes about 4 to 7 years for a NASA grouper to get big enough for it to come to the spawning aggregation. So before that, they're just young.
And is that all fish are like that, or is that because some fish can spawn when they're pretty young, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it depends species by species. So NASA grouper are a pretty long-lived species, and it takes them that long until they're ready to come to the aggregation and reproduce.
So they have to go through 7 years of life making it on the reef before they're even old enough to go and start spawning.
Yes.
And so that's why once we put the protections on, it really did take that long for us to start seeing the numbers increase.
Yeah. And then the other part too is, so NASA groupers, once they reproduce, their eggs go out with the ocean, and the ocean currents move them around for about 30 days until they settle on the reefs. And the ocean currents might not take them back to Little Cayman each year. So some years we might not get a lot of babies back here.
And when I first started, there was a project called the Drifter Project. What was that? Wasn't that researching that?
Yes.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about what that was?
So early on in the project, and even through 2014, we were still deploying these giant floats.
It's like a huge sock.
It's a huge sock attached to a floating ball at the surface, and the floating ball had a GPS unit that said where it was. And the sock hangs down in the water, and it actually moves at a depth in the water about 20 feet, which is where the NASA grouper eggs float to. So it was moving with the eggs, which another graduate student did work that confirmed that. Seakeeper stayed out for, I think, nearly 2 days chasing
2 days
the
straight.
eggs. And seeing where the eggs were going, and if they follow these GPS units, and they confirmed it does.
Well, I think a couple of the drifters actually ended up back on the reef.
They did that year. Oh, and I forget what year we did that, but that year the drifters wound up back on the reef, which means probably the eggs and larvae wound up back on the reef, which means 7 years from then we should be seeing babies.
So do you think that
recruits to the spawning aggregation?
Do you think that perhaps the fish have a current app on their iPhones that they're looking to see when the currents are going to bring those eggs back, or they don't have? I mean, what do you do? What do you think? We don't know.
We don't know yet. It would be a great thing to study.
So this is a mystery, right? We don't know, but the fish seem to cue in on something that's telling them, okay, tonight's the night that you're going to have the best possibility of those eggs staying close.
Yeah, and also the location. We know where they are out there, but sometimes they move, 100 yards or so. In a few years, they moved like half a kilometer, and maybe it had something to do with the currents, because maybe they are able to figure it out.
Right.
Or maybe it's something different. Maybe they're just attracted to where all the other fish are, and it's hang out with your friends.
Okay.
We don't know.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Lynn, for coming. You guys give Lynn a hand. Here, I'm going to bring in, hey, Cayman Prep, welcome. So glad to see you guys here. Okay. So as I was saying, thank you, Lynn. Last night was really just the first night after the full moon. And this is my 13th year on the project, and pretty much it takes 3 to 5 days after the full moon for the grouper to spawn. But last night, one night after full moon, they started spawning. So I'm going to bring up, I'm going to introduce you guys to Dr. Christy Semmens-Pattengill, who is one of, did I do that? Pattengill Semmens. I'm bringing her up here, introduce you guys. And we're going to talk about what we saw. Hi, Christy. How are you?
Hi, everyone.
So can you just first introduce yourself and say, what's your role with Reef in this project?
Absolutely. Thanks, Todd. Yeah. So my name is Christy Semmens. Dr. Christy Pattengill Semmens is my official name.
Doctor.
Yes, doctor. And I'm one of the executive directors at Reef, and I've been part of the Reef organization for a really long time. That's been my role. And I've been really excited to be able to be partners with our friends and colleagues at the Department of Environment for over 20 years. This is actually my 20th year. 20th year getting to come and have the privilege to be able to work on this project with all of the great folks like you saw earlier. And
I think
met yesterday.
I don't think that a lot of people understand Dr. Simmons-Pattengill and her husband, Bryce Simmons, who was here yesterday. You guys got to see Bryce yesterday. You guys have had children on this project with you that whole time, right?
Yeah.
Like, so there's always been a group of kids with this team, and this is the first year with that.
The first year, yep. Yeah, our oldest daughter came that very first year, and now she's away at university, so she's not here. And the others are home at secondary school. So yeah, it's been my role mostly is helping with all of the logistics. As you've kind of heard and seen, we have a lot of people to coordinate just everything from flights to what food we're going to bring over, all of that equipment that we've got to bring, working with our friends at DOE to make sure that the vessels that we need and everything that's over on Grand Cayman gets brought over here when we get here. So lots of little tiny things. It's not just we get here and go out on the boat and it's all easy. We gotta get everything lined up and ready, and then ready for things to change.
Right.
Like yesterday, we got to the dock, we were all ready to go, and then
Were you expecting spawning to happen?
Well, yeah, no, we were not. Like you said, that's the earliest we've ever seen. So we really had to, we kind of knew that middle dive that we did yesterday afternoon. We could tell by the way that they were acting. They get, that bicolor. They look like they've put on their tuxedos.
Right.
They're getting really ready for the party. And they were a lot of that. And they were acting really just excited, and we knew. So we had to switch course pretty quickly and to be prepared, bring out the science equipment that we needed for them when they were spawning.
Because what is it that you're doing when they're out there spawning? And I'm gonna share a couple of clips with you, and Christy will talk us through those. But can you say a little bit about what is happening? You're not doing the fish faces and the tagging when they're spawning.
Yeah,
What are you doing that?
Yeah. So our primary job when they're spawning is we're there documenting, we're noting down when they start spawning, like how many minutes before the sunrise or sunset, how many spawning bursts we see, and then a team of people will be in charge of going into some of the spawning bursts. Dr. Croy yesterday talked about the dance, where they kind of swirl up and then they release their gametes, and so we'll have folks have a Ziploc bag, just a regular old kitchen Ziploc.
It's not a special. It's not like this is made by NASA. No, it's
regular old Ziploc.
Okay.
The kind with the slider. That's the easiest.
Okay.
And you just go, and as soon as the cloud burst is there, you swoop the open Ziploc around a few times, you close it, and then your dive buddy, who you always have with you for safety, is videoing that whole time. So we're getting a video of the group of fishes and then the sample. We have a big number written on the bag.
Okay.
With a Sharpie. So
and that helps you keep track of.
That's right.
This bag goes with that video and those fish.
And then we know about how many fish were in that, because it's really variable. Sometimes you'll see just 2 or 3 fish in that little spiraling dance. Sometimes there's 40 fish. So we're trying to better understand how all of those dynamics work, because a lot of this project is considered a blueprint for other countries, other entities to be able to know how to successfully conserve their Nassau grouper. The Cayman Islands really are leading the way. So you guys are right there at the forefront.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see some of the video from last night. I'm gonna.
And I see there's a couple questions here.
But we already got to this. We got it.
Yeah, that
we
was
got
the
it.
one Lynn answered. All
yes. Right. Okay. So hold on one second, and I'm gonna bring up some video, and I've got about 5 clips that I'm going to go through, and I'm going to have Dr. Christy share a little bit about what's happening in each of those. So just give us a few minutes, and then when we're done, there'll be time for questions. So those of you that have questions, be thinking of them, because as soon as we're done sharing these videos, you can ask all the questions you want. Okay, so here.
Oh, yeah. So you can see there's the tuxedos. Most of the fish take on that. That's both the males and the female fish will take that coloration on. and they were all chasing a dark phase fish. You can see that there, kind of a darker phase. And so that's probably the female in the front. And they're trying to, a lot
So
of
you think
what's
like right here,
Yeah.
like right here is probably the female, and then all of these tuxedos, those are probably males.
Probably. Yeah,
Okay.
we don't know that for sure, but definitely the lead fish is the female. And we know that as soon as that female's done, that they will switch from bicolor to dark to the really light to the regular barred pattern. It doesn't really, we've seen one fish go through all 4 phases at the same time.
Does it take them very long to change colors?
No, it
Really?
can be instant.
Instant,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
an octopus. Like,
Yeah. Mhm.
okay, so here's another one. It's a little dark, but this is one of the spawning bursts.
Mhm. Yeah, so you can see that was kind of the very end. What they probably all came up from pretty deep, and then that's just kind of the top, and you can see there the cloud, and that's normally where a diver would go through and swim with the Ziploc bag to collect some of those. And someone asked me yesterday, is that a concern? Are we limiting the population by taking
going in
some
and
of those
taking-
eggs? And there's millions and millions of eggs released each, or gametes released each night.
Right.
And
Well, I heard that an adult, a mature female, can have over 100,000 eggs. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah. So it's a lot.
Wow.
So there is, a lot of factors come into those little gametes right away. They've
Yeah.
got last night, actually, we had.
Well, and I'm going to show a
Okay,
video
great.
right now of what you're talking about.
So sometimes there'll be what we call egg predators. There'll be these are little rainbow runners and some scad there that came in right after things got started last night, and they're picking off the gametes there.
So it's not just the grouper out there by themselves. There's other fish out there, and these fish that we're seeing here at the beginning of this video, they're specifically out there to nibble on the
Yeah.
feast that's being provided, right?
Yeah.
And do you always see fish like this out there at that time?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
they've clued into this activity, and they're going to be out there. The other critter that's clued into this are sharks.
Right.
And we talked, I think you all
Yeah.
talked about that a little bit last night. And we did see a couple sharks last night cruising the perimeter of the aggregation there.
All right, so let's take a look. We've got a couple more clips. I hope you guys are being able to see these all right. Here we go. All right.
Yeah, so that's a kind of a better, you can see one of our divers is videoing, and that was a pretty big
So that big
burst
cloud
there.
that we're seeing
Mhm.
there, that's the gametes,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. That's right. And so you see that this one is a much bigger, kind of spiral. There's probably 40 or 50 fish in there.
And
whereas
that's the dance that you're talking about
Mhm.
when they go together and they spiral up.
Yep, that's
Okay.
right. And this is happening right we got in about 20 minutes before sunset. And we think that when it gets really dark, they stop. They'll all settle back down on the reef for the night.
So it's just at that kind of dusk time
Mhm.
that you really are seeing it happen.
Yeah.
And why? Why dusk?
Yeah, well, probably it's the safest time from predators and from egg predators, from predators on the fish and predators for the eggs.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you think really it's like that's the most opportune time to protect the eggs.
Mm-hmm. And we think that, we know that, sometimes it's a couple nights after full moon. Sometimes it's been as late as 5 nights after full moon, 6 nights. And that seems the drifter studies that Dr. Waterhouse was talking about, where she said we put in those drifter balls,
Mhm.
that told us that probably there's something special about what the water is doing on the nights when they choose to spawn. It seems to have these little eddies. They're called eddy currents. The water's kind of spinning, and we think it's because it keeps the larvae close to home when they spawn, instead of immediately drifting away.
It's like all of these behaviors and choices that the group are making is really specifically to protect those fish,
Mhm.
to protect the babies.
To increase the likelihood of as many of them surviving to little baby Nassau grouper. Yeah, and making it back to a reef where they can survive. And you were asking, it's not just, we've got the predators, the egg predators and the grouper predators, but then there's a lot of other fish. We've seen over 20 different species using this site for reproduction. So
What
it's a
other
really
species do you
special
see
site.
out there?
There's several other species of grouper. So black grouper, yellowfin grouper, Then the Nassau, of course.
Tiger grouper. I've
Tiger
seen.
grouper, yes. And then there's oceanic triggerfish, leather jackets. Yeah. There's, we see several species of jacks out there spawning.
Last year we had video of a hammerhead that was out there. In
Oh.
fact, I'll post that on the blog for you guys. And I see here Cayman Prep has a question for you. How many eggs do you collect in one Ziploc bag?
Yeah, so that depends a little bit on how lucky you get with your swooping.
So your swooping skills really are important.
And the number of fish that were there. I think I did one last night that I'm pretty sure might have had like one egg in it, or maybe a few. I didn't do a very good job. But then sometimes you can get hundreds of eggs in one Ziploc. And so those, when we take them back to the lab, we're doing a couple things. We're looking at how those, and I think Janelle spoke with everyone yesterday, some of the work that she's doing about what.
Yeah, she was saying that they actually have set up a lab in your rented house. Yeah, I'll take pictures of the lab that the crew has made, which is where you're going to be studying the eggs, right?
Yeah, and a lot of what she's looking at is different temperatures. So you'll see in the photos, some of them are labeled with different temperatures, because she's going to put some of them in the warmer water and some of them in the cooler water to see, because we all know that the ocean temperatures are changing a lot. Right. And so we want to have a better understanding of what that might mean for the future of Nassau grouper.
So we have a couple of questions. One of them, another question from Cayman Prep. Thanks for keeping them coming. And if anyone wants to ask questions live, you can raise your hand and I'll pull you up. But the next question is, what's the top predator in Little Cayman?
Ooh, that would be the sharks. I would say the sharks are the top predator. Those Caribbean reef sharks are the top predators. And then these big Nassau grouper, they're right up there at the top. Which is why it's really important that we have such a healthy population in the Cayman Islands, because they do a great job of keeping the whole ecosystem in balance.
Awesome.
And it's
really important that they're there.
Very.
And I don't think people necessarily understand how important it is that you have those top predators out there for maintaining the health of the rest of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Well, and we have a question from Miss Meisel's class, and Miss Meisel used to be a researcher on this project too, isn't that right?
That's right. Yes, that's right. Miss Meisel was part of our team for years and years and years. It's so great to see you online. Thanks for joining us. And
her question is, what percentage of the fertilized eggs make it to adulthood?
Very few, really.
Like,
so we're talking, we
50%.
Not 50%, probably 1%, maybe even 0.5%. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a very small number. That's why the reproductive strategy that these Nassau grouper are using is, just putting as many gametes as they can, and then there's no parental care. There's no, taking care of those gametes. They're gone. And because it's up to the predators, it's up to currents and wind and wave, how much health. The healthier the gamete, the more likely it's going to survive, and then just a lot of chance. This has come up a couple times before, that sometimes you think that maybe none of them recruit, that maybe very few actually make it in 1 year. Yeah, and that might be and probably there's we know for sure that some of the babies go and make it other places. So the Cayman Islands is an important source to keep Nassau grouper doing well in other places, but we know that most of the babies make it back here. Right. It's a very, what we call a self-seeding or self-replenishing population and you've proven that from the genetic studies and the fish faces, right? That we're seeing those same fish come back, that the eggs that are coming, or the new young fish are related to those from the aggregation. Right. Because I think that there was some idea that we were getting fish from Cuba or other places, or that they were going off, but it seems that most of them are actually staying here. So all the protection and work that's happening here is making a difference here, which is really important. That's so amazing. Thank you for that question, Miss Meisel's class. And then we have Cayman Prep. So good to see you. How deep are the fish when they're spawning?
Great question.
Yeah. So last night we saw we don't go deeper than about 100 feet or about 30 meters is as deep as us divers are going to go. But we could see down, and there were fish probably as deep as probably 50 meters or more down there spawning. But then a lot of them were up close, and they do, wherever they start, they do that. You kind of saw that
spiral stance.
And so the ones that are kind of starting where we are, they spiral and they'll get up to about 10 meters maybe and then they all come back down.
Wonderful question. Okay, Cayman Prep, keep them coming. I see, what is the location of the groupers when spawning?
That's a really good question. So here on Little Cayman, we're going to the west end of the island where it kind of comes right to a point. So that's the west end spawning aggregation.
Now, what about on Brack?
On Brack, it's on the east end of Cayman Brack. There used to be an aggregation on Little Cayman on the east end.
Oh,
so
really?
Every year we try and go out there to
go out and check.
just to make sure that some fish, and we know from tracking that some fish, older fish, will go and check that old site.
See
make sure, am I still in the right place? Should I go over there? No, I'm going to come back here. So the fish move a lot. They don't just leave their home reef and go out to the spawning site.
So they actually are kind of looking around.
They're looking around, making sure that that's the place, that's the party they want to be at. But the other really important part about that moving is that they're teaching the younger fish who haven't gone yet that this is the way, come this way, follow me.
Right.
And we know that those older fish will go out to the spawning site and then they leave, then they come back. And that's what they're doing, is the behavior. They're kind of because these are solitary fish. They're not normally with other Nassau during the year.
And when you see them on their, they're solitary and they're territorial, you guys, like they protect their spot and they live in that spot their whole life.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if another Nassau enters their territory,
that's not good.
You see the color change happen right away. You'll see one of them come and swim up and kind of try to nudge the other one out of their territory.
Mm-hmm.
But then on this week in the winter, their behavior absolutely flips.
Yeah. And we know, that's a lot of probably what that coloration is kind of that. And I think maybe Bryce mentioned that yesterday. That's a little bit of like, hey, it's going to be okay. We're all here.
So it's it's communication.
Communication for sure.
Right.
And that's, I think also they go out to those points. So it's not just here in the Cayman Islands, all of the spawning aggregations in the Caribbean of all different species, they typically are at points because that's a good kind of meeting spot. It's an easy, it's like the street corner, right? Like, that's an easy spot.
Right.
But it's also a good place for larval dispersal.
Right. And that's something that Dr. Croy was talking about yesterday, that this spot where they aggregate is an important spot, not just for the Nassau, but for other fish as well that spawn, right?
Yeah. And so that's why the Cayman government a couple of years ago, through the Marine Parks Act, protected all of those spawning aggregations because they are really important year round, not just in the winter. There's species that use them year round. Okay, thank you. So Spot Bay, hey, you guys, I'm so happy to see you here with us today. We've got a question from Spot Bay. How long is a grouper's lifespan? That's a great question. So we think they're typically 25 to 30 years old. There's been some as old as 35 to 40 years old, but typically an old one would be 20 to 25 years. And they don't start going to the spawning aggregation until they're no younger than about 6 to 7, typically more like 8 years before they'll start going. So that's why if you're here right now in any of the islands and you go to a regular reef, you might see a young Nassau grouper because they're not old enough. That's right. And we had some divers here asking me that last night. They said, well, we saw Nassau on the reef. And I said, well, how big? About like that big. How old of a fish do you think is about that? So that's, getting close. But not quite. Maybe 4 or 5, and so maybe next year. Right. When they first arrive, when they're just this way. Yeah, it's opposite. It's little. They're out in the shallow, rocky reef parts. Hiding in little hiding holes because they're still pretty vulnerable. And then they get big enough that they're going to be the only thing that'll really eat them are sharks after that. All right, great question, Spot Bay. Another one, let's see. Another question from Spot Bay. What is the population of the groupers in Cayman Brack? That is a great question. And we're working hard. Like we said, the team went over there the couple days earlier this week, and we'll go back later when the weather gets a little better later in the week and do another population estimate. But they're definitely on the increase. We don't have good numbers yet for this year.
Yeah,
But
Dr. Croy yesterday was saying a couple thousand was
yeah,
his estimate.
Was the last
Yeah,
numbers.
and that's significantly bigger than previous. I mean, I remember
Yeah,
when
a couple hundred for a while there.
when I first came on the project, you guys had a boat out on the Brack that would go out diving the same that you're doing here all the time, and they didn't see
Yeah, it
nearly
was
that many.
pretty- Yeah.
So that's a big increase. Okay, great question, Spot Bay. And then Cayman Prep. What can we do to help the groupers? Excellent question.
Good question. You know, the best thing you can do is respect the spawning season, because that's going to be when the populations are at their most vulnerable. So really, it's not just at the aggregation itself, but where those fish are moving. You know, they're moving in and out of the spawning season, which is why the DOE decided it was most effective to be able to just protect the grouper during their spawning season. And so I think that's the most important thing. And then knowing how important they are to the ecosystem, the health of the whole, keeping the whole reefs here in balance, and how important, you know, culturally they are to the Cayman Islands. So understanding the story of Nassau grouper and how it relates to your family's history and why it's so important to have them for the future.
Well, and I want to add that you guys are doing the work right now. Just by you being here and learning this information about your own natural resources, you take that information and you share that with your family and your friends, and that information gets shared among everyone. And that's really what starts to change kind of the public's opinion about, oh yeah, this is why we need to protect our reefs. And this is what happens when we do protect them. These amazing things happen, like this spawning aggregation that was decimated down to 1,500 fish is now up to 7,000, maybe more this year.
Yep.
All right, let's do one more question. Spot Bay, in the next few years, what is the estimate of groupers in the Cayman Islands? So what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, you know, and part of, like Todd was saying earlier, some years we don't see any recruitment or any little baby Nassau grouper show up. And some years we've seen, you know, hundreds. They're all over.
Right.
Those recruitment years are relatively few, infrequent, but so it kind of depends. You know, if we get a good recruitment year, we'll see a big bump in like
so
4 or 5
years, a bunch of them survive the spawning, but then some years
it's very few. You know, there's some that make it,
right,
but not enough for us to notice out on the reefs.
So you kind of have a bumper crop some years where,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah, so we'll see, but we know that if the protections continue to stay in place, the populations are continuing to rebuild. They're definitely not historically before, you know, way back a long time ago. The original populations were not at those populations yet. So they're still rebuilding to happen.
So what do you think, like historically the population here on Grant or on Little used to be?
Yeah, it's so hard to know. There's not really, you know.
There's not historical data about it.
No, but you know, more than 10,000, 20,000 maybe. We know there's some places in the Bahamas where there was estimated to be almost over 100,000 Nassau grouper
in one aggregation.
At one aggregation, so a lot.
I want to see that. That's what I want to see. Let's get 100,000. So I want to go along with this in the next couple of years. We've seen the numbers increase here and on the Brack. Is there any idea about like maybe Grand something will happen?
Yeah, there's definitely work happening over there. The aggregation there is harder to do.
Is that because it's deeper?
It's deeper. It's a little farther offshore. It's more remote. So we're coming up with more creative ways to try and better monitor the population change there.
That's exciting. All right, so that's the last of the questions. I think we got all of them. Yep. All right, Christy, thank you so much for being here. You guys give Christy a hand.
Bye everyone. I hope to see you when we do the live feed underwater. That'll be really fun.
Okay, so okay, got it. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. Now, tomorrow is the big day. Tomorrow we're going to take you out on the Seakeeper, and we're going to go for a dive on Bloody Bay Wall, and we're going to see one of the most amazing dive sites in the Cayman Islands and certainly in the Caribbean. So we all hope that you guys show up tomorrow at 11 o'clock right here, and we'll go and we'll see what's under the water. Thanks you guys so much for being here. You're awesome. We'll see you tomorrow. Go Grouper Moon. Woo. Bye, you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.